picture this scenario just for a second. A dealership drops thousands of dollars, maybe even tens of thousands, on their online inventory presentation.
Oh, yeah, the whole 9 yards.
Right. Like they are paying top dollar for that really high-end lot photography. They have those interactive 360-degree vehicle spins where you can rotate the car on your screen.
Right, which are not cheap, by the way.
Exactly. They pay for walk-around videos, slick inventory overlays, maybe even a vendor who comes out and does like sweeping drone shots of the entire lot.
Yeah, pulling out all the stops.
They are spending serious money on software that pushes this inventory all across the internet. But then they take a beautifully photographed $48,000 truck and they type this into the description box, quote, 2023 Ford F-150 XLT, clean, runs great, call today.
Wow. It's just the ultimate anticlimax. I mean, you have all that visual buildup, all that money spent to capture a buyer's attention, and the actual message, the part where you are supposed to actually sell the vehicle is basically just a shrug.
It is a total surrender. Well, welcome to the deep dive. We are really thrilled to have you with us today.
Happy to be here.
So our mission today is unpacking a really fascinating source titled Selling Value Beyond the VIN-decoder.
Which is a great read, by the way.
It really is. We're going to figure out why generic vehicle descriptions are secretly destroying inventory value, making very expensive vehicles look incredibly cheap, and how fixing one simple text box can completely transform a dealership's profit margins.
It is wild how much money is left on the table.
Oh, for sure. But before we get into the weeds on that, this deep dive is brought to you by DeskReadyLeads.com.
Yes, indeed.
If your dealership is tired of leads with no context, no intent, and no real reason to buy, it may be time for a different approach. Visit DeskReadyLeads.com to see how we can help your dealership generate better conversations with buyers who actually have a reason to engage.
Which, that ties perfectly into what we are unpacking today.
It really does.
I mean, engaging a buyer requires giving them a real reason to engage, and that starts fundamentally with how you present the asset.
Exactly.
The source material is so adamant about this. Putting runs great, call today on a $50,000 piece of machinery isn't just lazy. It's an active surrender of your profit margin.
Okay, let's unpack this surrender, because from the outside looking in, it makes absolutely no sense. Why do they do it?
Well, the source points out that dealerships often treat these descriptions simply like a technical requirement.
Just a box to check?
Exactly. It's just an empty box in their inventory management system that someone or some piece of software is required to fill so the page can go live. They just assume the photos are doing all the heavy lifting.
And that is a huge mistake. It's like building $1 million mansion, putting it on the market, hiring the absolute best architectural photographers to take pictures of the marble countertops, and then sticking a piece of torn cardboard on the front lawn that just says, house has doors.
That is exactly it. That analogy hits the nail on the head.
It just completely undermines the perceived value of the asset.
Right, because when a description fails to explain why a specific unit matters, it just strips away the uniqueness of the vehicle entirely.
Right.
It forces that customer who, let's be honest, probably has 37 browser tabs open, comparing vehicles from a dozen different lots.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It forces them to compare your vehicle against everyone else's based on one metric alone, and that's the price. You have successfully presented a highly complex, valuable machine as a pure commodity.
But let me push back slightly on this just to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
We've all heard the phrase, picture's worth 1,000 words.
Sure.
If shoppers are looking at those 360-degree spins, if they can zoom in on the stitching of the leather seats, if they can see the exact tread depth on the tires, why isn't the visual enough? Doesn't the image just speak for itself?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the modern shopper processes information. A photo can only show you what is physically present. Like, it shows you a truck bed, it shows you a third-row seat. What the visual cannot do is explain the mechanism of why that feature matters to the specific person looking at it.
Right.
Without the context of the why, a $72,000 Yukon Denali gets the exact same lifeless treatment as a base model use sedan. Everything just becomes interchangeable.
So the picture isn't the whole story.
Not at all. A photo shows a truck bed, but the description is supposed to tell you, this truck is ready for weekend projects, job site use, towing, and daily driving without feeling like a stripped-down work truck.
It provides the lifestyle context. It answers the silent question the buyer is asking, which is Is this one worth my time?
Exactly. If a customer cannot tell why your vehicle is better than the one in the next browser tab, they will just assume it isn't.
And that is when they sort by lowest price.
Yep. And that leads to the root cause of this whole problem. The source points out that a massive portion of this lazy text isn't even written by humans who are, like, tired or distracted.
Well, it's the software.
It is generated by software. We are talking about the attack of the VIN-decoders.
Ah, yes. Let's explain how that works for anyone who might be unfamiliar. A VIN-decoder is essentially an algorithm that takes the vehicle identification number, queries a massive database, and spits out the factory equipment list.
Right.
Website providers will often auto-generate robotic paragraphs using this data. So it spits out something like, drive home in this outstanding 2021 Chevrolet Silverado today. This vehicle comes equipped with power windows, power locks, backup camera, Bluetooth, and much more. Visit us today for a test drive.
I mean, it literally sounds like a robot reading a dictionary.
It really does.
That could be literally any truck, anywhere in the country. It has no personality, no selling angle, and no ownership story. VIN decoders are designed to pull equipment lists. They are not salespeople.
Right. They just list facts.
Exactly. A decoder can tell you a car has heated seats. It cannot explain why a commuter dealing with freezing January mornings cares about that. It knows a truck has a towing package, but it cannot explain why someone pulling a heavy trailer for work needs that specific gear ratio and suspension setup.
You know, the source also calls out this massive reliance on what it calls acronym soup. Dealers just love throwing letters at the customer, like CPO, VDP, Lariat, Z71, AT4, EXL.
I actually have to stop you right there because your list actually highlights the exact problem the source is pointing out.
Wait, really?
Yeah. You just listed VDP and CPO alongside vehicle trims like Z71 and EXL. VDP stands for Vehicle Detail Page. That is an internal website developer term for the web page itself. It has absolutely nothing to do with the car.
Oh, wow, I didn't even realize that.
Right. And CPO means Certified Pre-Owned. Dealerships get so entrenched in their own industry jargon that they just dump it all onto the page, assuming the customer knows what it all means.
That is incredibly revealing. But surely there is a segment of buyers like the car enthusiasts who are specifically searching for an AT4 or a Z71. Doesn't the raw data just speak for itself to the right buyer?
Well, it speaks to the enthusiast, absolutely. But the enthusiast is a tiny fraction of the overall market.
Good point.
And even for them, featured data is just raw material. The description is supposed to be the sales argument. If your website is simply dumping equipment acronyms into a paragraph, you are not merchandising the vehicle. You are just labeling it.
Labeling versus merchandise.
Exactly. Labels do not build value.
That distinction is crucial. And the source is a great example of this. Instead of just writing 2021 Honda Pilot EXL, a strong description translates that trim into a tangible benefit.
Right.
It says the EXL trim is one of the sweet spots in the Pilot lineup because it gives families leather seating, comfort features, and everyday practicality without jumping into the highest priced trims.
See, that is brilliant. You are taking an acronym and turning it into a real-world value proposition. The more a customer understands that value, the less they rely only on the price tag to make their decision.
Makes total sense.
And this becomes exponentially more important when we move away from new cars and look at used inventory. If dumping generic data hurts the gross profit on new cars, the source argues it absolutely devastates the value of used cars.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, because it makes perfect sense when you think about the nature of the product. A new vehicle has factory consistency, right? Every new 2024 model of a certain trim is practically identical to the next one on the assembly line.
Exactly.
But a used vehicle has a unique story. It makes me think of buying a vintage guitar.
Oh, I like that comparison.
Yeah, the value of a vintage instrument isn't just in the wood and the strings. The value is in the history. The fact that the guitar has a specific scuff mark from a certain era, or that it was played in a specific studio, or that there was only one previous owner who kept it in a climate-controlled environment. That story is the value.
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it. For a used car, the exact same year, make, and model can vary wildly in desirability.
Right.
A lease return that was meticulously maintained by an accountant is a fundamentally different product than a former rental car that was driven by 100 different tourists.
Oh, totally.
Mileage matters. Condition matters. Ownership history, local ownership, the fact that it has brand new tires, all of that changes the mechanical and financial value of the asset.
Yet, most used car descriptions barely say anything meaningful. They use the exact same generic VIN-decoder paragraph as the new cars, which completely erases the story.
And by erasing the story, you erase the justification for the price. Let's look at how the source handles a used Toyota Camry, for example.
Okay.
A bad description just lists the Bluetooth and the backup camera. It treats it like a commodity. But a good description says, this 2021 Toyota Camry is the kind of used sedan shoppers look for when they want reliability, strong fuel economy, and a lower cost of ownership.
That is so much better.
It goes on. With its clean interior, comfortable ride, and reputation for lasting value, it is a smart fit for commuters, students, or anyone trying to avoid the higher payment of a new vehicle.
It totally changes the psychological framing of the car.
Right. It does way more than list equipment. It is actively positioning the car in the market, and positioning creates value.
Because if you don't do that,
Exactly. When you fail to position a used car, the customer looks at it, looks at the price, can't figure out why it's special, and sends that dreaded message, what is your best price?
the ultimate margin killer.
Yep. That negotiation tactic almost always starts because the dealership failed to explain the value up front. The customer is negotiating the number because you gave them absolutely no value to consider.
Okay, so what does this all mean? If generic robotic text is a gross killer, it might be tempting for a dealership to go in the complete opposite direction, right? Turn up the volume, use a ton of enthusiastic salesy hype, perfect condition, will not last, best deal in town, guaranteed approval.
Well, please no.
But the source is very clear that misleading, hyped-up descriptions are actually worse than generic ones.
They are significantly worse because they introduce a completely new problem, which is distrust. Buyers today are savvy.
Right.
When a buyer sees a used car listed in perfect condition with 3 exclamation points, it creates cognitive friction. The buyer's brain knows a used car with 40,000 miles is not in perfect condition. It has door dings. It has wear and tear.
Yeah, it triggers this defensive shopping mechanism. When I read will not last in all caps, my brain immediately goes, okay, what's the catch? What are they trying to hide?
Exactly. Honest value sells so much better than empty hype. The goal isn't to overpromise. The goal is empathy. It is about matching the specific buyer type.
Right, because different vehicles attract entirely different psychographics. A Jeep Wrangler buyer does not think like a Toyota Camry buyer. A person looking for a commercial work van has completely different priorities than someone looking for a luxury SUV.
Precisely. The commercial van buyer cares about payload capacities, shelving options, and whether this vehicle qualifies for, Section 179 business tax deductions.
Sure.
The luxury SUV buyer cares about ride quietness, premium cabin materials, and status.
So you have to tailor the message.
Exactly. If you are writing a description for a truck, you talk about towing, job site use, cab space, and durability. If it is a 3-row SUV, you talk about flexible seating, cargo space, school runs, and road trips.
You essentially have to sound like a helpful human salesperson who is physically walking a customer around the lot.
Yes. Anticipating their needs and explaining how the vehicle meets them. If it has new tires, say it. If it's a local trade, say it. You are defending the price by explaining the value before the salesperson ever even gets involved.
But practically speaking, if a dealer has hundreds of cars, how do they write with empathy for every single one without writing a novel?
Well, the source provides a very tangible blueprint for this, and it ties directly into a massive secondary benefit, which is SEO, search engine optimization.
Really? How so?
It turns out writing good, human-centered descriptions actually helps you win the internet's search algorithms. This is perhaps the most critical mechanical insight in the entire source. Dealerships leave staggering amounts of money on the table here.
I can imagine.
Search engine algorithms, like Google's, are designed to serve relevant, unique content to human beings. If 50 different dealerships within a 50-mile radius are all selling a 2021 Silverado, and all 50 dealerships use the exact same auto-generated VIN-decoder paragraph, the search engine sees that as duplicate content.
It views it as spam or at the very least low-value filler. The algorithm has absolutely no reason to rank your specific truck higher than the other 49.
That is the mechanism of the penalty. An auto-generated description satisfies a field in the inventory system, but it completely fails the search algorithm.
Right.
Real people do not search for a string of acronyms. They search for used 3-row SUV, or used truck with towing package, or affordable first car.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When you write a description that uses those natural human phrases, your vehicle detail page suddenly becomes a highly relevant landing page. You start capturing organic search traffic simply because you wrote the way people actually speak.
So how do we structure this text so it ranks well and actually converts the buyer without taking all day to write?
The source outlines a really simple three-paragraph structure. It doesn't have to be a giant block of text, and in fact, it shouldn't be.
Okay, what are the 3 steps?
It is 3 distinct steps that anyone can follow. Paragraph 1, position the vehicle. Explain who it is for and what lifestyle it fits. Paragraph 2, highlight the most valuable features. Explain why those features matter to that specific buyer. And paragraph 3, create the next action.
I want to focus on that next action piece because this is where so much of the friction happens. Usually that final line is just lazy pressure. Call today before it is gone.
Oh, yes.
That kind of aggressive urgency doesn't match how people actually shop today. It creates anxiety instead of facilitating a conversation.
It is entirely counterproductive. A better next action gives the customer helpful, low-friction options. Something like, message us to confirm availability, review payment options, or schedule a quick test drive.
That feels so much more helpful.
Because it is. It acknowledges that some people want to text about a trade-in value, some want to request a video walk-around, and some just want to know if the car is still physically on the lot before they spend an hour driving over. You have to reduce the friction of the next step.
It is incredibly ironic when you step back and look at the whole picture. Think about the millions of dollars tied up in inventory sitting on the asphalt. Dealerships pay flooring costs, they photograph it, they advertise it, they push it to third-party sites, they merchandise it. And yet, they let the absolute cheapest part of the entire process, literally just typing a paragraph, ruin the most expensive part.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, fixing this does not require a new website, it does not require a new software vendor, it doesn't even require an increased marketing budget.
Just a little effort.
It simply requires effort and an understanding of human psychology. It requires someone who understands how to translate a mechanical feature into a tangible customer value. If your description cannot answer, "Why should I care?" then your price will have to do it for you.
Wow.
And when price does all the selling, you have already lost control of the deal.
Words matter. They really do. A description is not a placeholder. It is the ultimate sales tool. It builds confidence, it defends your price, and it stops that race to the bottom where everyone is just competing to be the cheapest option on a search grid.
It creates the reality of the vehicle in the mind of the buyer.
We want to leave you with a final thought to ponder today. The source material we unpacked is entirely about car dealerships. But think about your own life, your own career, or your own business.
Oh, that's a great point.
Are you presenting your own skills, your services, or your projects, like a VIN-decoder? Are you just listing the raw features of what you do on your resume or the services you provide on your website?
Just the list of parts.
Right. Or are you actually taking the time to explain the value, tell the story, and answer the question, why should they care? Because if you are just relying on the flashy drone shots and the bullet points, you might be leaving your own value on the table.
You certainly don't want to be the $48,000 asset with a sticky note that just says, clean, runs great.
Definitely not. Don't let a generic description make you look cheaper than you are. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.